So how do you feel about the fact that all my exes live in Texas?
Phil, it's great. They're not near you. They're exactly where they're supposed to be. Even though we're going to Texas in a few weeks.
All my exes live in Texas. Do you
I like
remember
your
that
top.
song?
Yeah, I do. Actually.
George Strait.
Yeah. I like your top, by the way.
You do?
Yeah.
It's Ladare.
Ooh, my favorite brand. I love Ladare. They have such cute things.
They make hot clothes for women over 21.
Yeah.
So
And
instead of having to be like Forever 21, you always feel like guilty shopping there because you're like, I'm over 21. But like you can go to Ladare and you're like,
I'm over 21.
I'm like way over 21, but I don't feel bad buying these hot clothes.
So I have a question for you that one of our followers wanted to ask us.
Okay.
Who has the higher IQ?
Neither.
What is your IQ? Do you know?
No, I don't know. I haven't been tested. Have you?
I have. I think I scored like a little above average, which I was really surprised about. I think they made a mistake, but
I think above average is good.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
It was like a point over average. It was nothing dramatic.
Like, is it a long test?
Yeah, it's really long. It took me like 3 hours. I did it at the Scientology place up in
Wait, what?
I don't know. I was walking down the street and this guy came up to me and he was like, "Do you want to take an IQ test?" And I was really confused.
I think that's how they get you into Scientology is when you take one of those tests.
I don't mind. I have nothing against Scientology.
No, it's like that's their entree, right? It's that because so when I went to University of Texas, they had a little Scientology center and they would camp out like in front of there.
Yeah.
And they would ask like, I think it was stress tests at the time.
Yes, they had a stress test, and then right after you could just take an IQ test.
No, I don't have anything against it. It's just like
They're
it's
just trying-
different, you
Yeah,
know?
It's interesting.
It's like
I'm
not
really-
everyone's wanting to go take a stress test on their way to class, you know?
Well, I was like walking down Hollywood Boulevard.
And you were like, I need to know how smart I am.
Yeah. Just really needed to know how smart I am. Just, it's my main thing. So, okay, who has a higher IQ? I guess, I don't know.
TBD, I don't know.
We're going to have to find out. We should take an IQ
Okay,
test.
well, why don't you guys tell us who has a higher IQ?
That would be interesting, actually.
Yeah,
We'll
why
take
not?
an IQ test and get back to you guys.
By the way,
Yeah.
IQ is not like everything because
No, it's
EI is really important in our field, which is emotional intelligence. And that is totally different than IQ.
Yeah. No,
And
absolutely.
it's important like people realize that like
You're-
it's not just about having a good IQ to be successful in life.
You're right. People get that mixed up.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like where's the EI test?
There isn't one, actually.
Well, okay.
Remember we were talking about in grad school where like there isn't an EI test. Dr. Futterman, do you remember him?
I do.
Yeah, he was
He's
talking
fun.
about how emotional intelligence, it's so important for us to actually know emotional intelligence, and we don't focus enough on it. But I mean, let's get into our emotional intelligence and how it shows up in our relationships and why we should or should not take our exes back. So I took a poll on Instagram and I asked, would you take your ex back or should you take your ex back? And 100% out of 223 people said no. But that's so interesting.
So, well, like, I wonder why. Are people just like traumatized? They don't want to give people second chances?
Well, they made some interesting comments in my direct messages. Like,
So, no, and why?
yeah, the why was it's like taking a shit and then putting it back into your body.
Wait, what?
I swear.
Like, okay, if
That's what somebody
there's
actually
there's
said.
like things that are hard to come back from, like point of no return. Like, I can't entertain that because I don't have any answers with that. And I don't really want the visual, quite honestly. People are so funny.
You want to read the other one?
Yeah, but like, but I was gonna say, like, okay, if somebody cheated, oh my god, we're never gonna get past the shit talk. Okay, I'm just gonna let this one ride out. Let's go.
I don't know why I found it so funny.
No, but like, I get the metaphor, right? It's like been there, done that. I'm not going back. It's done. It's like it's not even possible.
Yeah. Literally, he said, I have the best saying for this. It's a little gross but funny. Taking your ex back is like sticking shit back in your ass. I can't.
What the fuck?
Oh my god, my makeup's gonna get ruined.
Oh my god, can you give me like a more mainstream response?
Oh my God. Okay. So somebody else said, you don't go back to your leftovers. Okay.
Similar to the potty. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I get that. Sloppy, like you're done.
I think that was like the best answer ever.
Is it like if you have Chinese, you put it back in the fridge, you don't eat it the next day?
I think Chinese food is much better than your ex.
I love Chinese food second day. That's actually better, I think.
Yeah, it does. Food tastes much better.
But
the
maybe
next
it's not
day.
a good analogy. Okay.
So why do all of your Texas? Why do all
all my
all
exes
your
live
exes
in?
live in Texas?
No, well, I lived in Texas. They don't all live in Texas,
Oh.
but you know this about me, like I'm obsessed with country music.
Yeah.
And that song, All My Exes Live in Texas, is my like pump you up song when I'm having a bad day. So I literally
Marcus
get
feel about that.
I mean, I don't even know. I've never asked him, but George Strait, All My Exes Live in Texas. I'm having a bad day. That song goes on. And it's a classic.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a really important question to ask ourselves as to why we wouldn't go back, but I think it has to also do with like the type of ex you had. I mean, I'm sure there's like one ex that you would go back to if they were to kind of change.
I feel like sometimes two people need to grow up. So it's like if you dated someone and you were super young and you broke up for silly reasons because you just had to like figure yourself out, and then I don't know, some years have passed and you guys are still single, like
That's
why
true.
not
Yeah.
try it on for size again?
Yeah. I don't know if I would ever go back.
Would you ever go back to an ex?
No. I think I've grown out of all of my relationships. I'm a totally different person. You know? Like, I wouldn't. I think most women, most women are out of the relationship before they're out of the relationship.
Emotionally
So.
checked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Most women they just check out, they do until they can do no more. And then they're just done with the relationship, where men are more like they kind of regret things they've done, and they would, if they could go back, they can do things different. That's what I've seen in my practice, at least.
Okay, so here's the good question. Let's say two people are in a relationship and they're both like checked out, right? They don't really want to be in the relationship, but they're both sticking it out. Who leaves first? The guy or the girl?
So you're in a relationship.
You're both like mentally, like you said, how like women will stay around a little bit longer even though they're
Yeah.
emotionally checked out. Before they like, when they end it, it's like they already ended in their mind 6 months before, right?
Yeah.
But let's say the guy feels that way too. Who ends it first?
Well, talk about it. You guys should maybe talk about it.
But is it the guy that comes to the girl and is like, I'm like done? Or is it the girl that I think it's the girl.
You know, when I've spoken to people, what I've learned is that men typically feel really bad to break up with women because they don't want to like hurt them, and then women are gnarly. When we break up, like we can be really cold.
Stuff goes flying.
There are certain situations where I feel like it's totally appropriate to take your ex back. Sometimes we grow apart and then we grow back together. We grow up and we grow into the relationship again. But
sometimes it's the one that got away too.
Yeah.
Like there are people out there still thinking about like, oh, what if I had like locked that up with that person? What if we had seen things through? Because we know people use avoidance. We know like when things suddenly get serious, and usually it's the woman who's like, all right, ticking time, you know, like let's either get married or whatever it is they want. And the guy balks a little bit and is like, oh, I don't know. And then the girl walks away. And then let's say like years down the line, he's like, yeah, the grass wasn't greener. I should have saw that through.
That's exactly my point when I said usually the guy is the one to regret the relationship and what he could have done different, you know? I don't believe in pushing people to do things. I don't think you should try to change people or push them to do things. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes we as women make, is push and not relinquish control in a relationship and just kind of like let a man kind of do things on his time while encouraging him and maybe, you know, expressing our wants and our needs. That's really important, which kind of goes back to the biggest mistake women make is not express our wants and needs because we're afraid that we're going to get rejected. We're afraid that we might not be heard and seen, or we might come off like needy.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
You know? So we're like, no, it's
because
okay.
it's if we say that, then it's like we push them away. The fear of like, oh my gosh, they're going to retreat if I tell them.
Yeah, but then if we don't tell them and we're not vulnerable, then they don't know. A man who wants to be with you is going to want to hear what you want and what you need, and he will give it to you. Sometimes at his own time, but he'll give it to you. But we expect them to know, like, well, he should know he should call me, or he should know that I like this, or he should know to send me flowers, or he should know that I want to be in a relationship. But
yeah, women really get that wrong. Okay, so here's my thing, and I love this analogy because I use this with my patients. It's the crystal ball thinking. Do you remember this from grad school? It was like in a textbook.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that talked about, but I was like, this is brilliant. So it's the idea of like looking into a crystal ball and like being able to tell the future, being able to read someone's mind and know what they're thinking and what they want. And it's like, yo, nobody can do that unless maybe you are psychic, but most people aren't.
Yeah.
And so I apply that to relationships. It's like, okay, if you want something from your partner, speak your piece.
Yeah.
Tell them
and
what you need.
if they run away, then they weren't yours to begin with. So, I mean, especially at our age, if you're going to run away from a woman telling you something they want or need, then au revoir.
True. But women also need to like get a little more savvy and speak up and be like, I need X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I expected you to know this, but apparently you don't. So here I am. And like, say what you want. Say what you want and mean it, right?
We teach people how to treat us, Elizabeth. You know, we're like
training.
It's kind of like look at how when we look at kindness, right? Some humans are just so kind to people, even to the people that don't deserve their kindness. Like, let's say we're in a relationship and the person in front of us just keeps fucking up, literally, constantly. And we're just so nice to them and we're so understanding, we're so kind. Because we just don't want to come off as being mean or rude. We don't want to hurt their feelings. But we are actually teaching them how to treat us. So they're learning that no matter what they do, they can get away with it because we're going to be kind and nice to them. But what happens eventually with these kind, nice people is they break.
Or they get taken advantage of.
First they get taken advantage of, and then they break, and then they become these cold people when they're really not. They've just had enough. But at the end of the day, we have to look at ourselves. If we're being kind to mean people constantly who are treating us like crap, then we have taught them that that's okay to treat us that way. So again, going back to speaking up, telling someone that's unacceptable, I will not accept that, that's not okay with me, or I'm okay with this and I'm not okay with that. That's what you're saying, and that's so important. We can still be kind and do that. But, you know, it's just sad when you get taken advantage of because you are kind and you're nice.
But I think what you're touching upon is so important because boundaries, right? If you're too nice, maybe you don't have good boundaries, right? Like people can take advantage of you to a point. And we talk about boundaries, right? So the way boundaries work is that nobody likes them, but that we subconsciously seek them because they make us feel safe.
Yeah.
And not only do we seek them, we need them in our lives because we need an operating system. We need to know where the line is. We need that containment. We seek it. And even though it may not be popular, it's helpful to us.
Yeah.
So don't be kind to a fault. Be kind, but also have your boundary in place.
Yeah.
And know where that like proverbial line is.
What happens to our mind when we like someone? Do we just become stupid?
Dopamine, baby.
I know, but it's like, well, you know, logically, I know this, and this. And then the minute you start liking someone, your all logic just goes out the door and you just become this like blah, you know?
You're like that guy in the car dealership that's like fluffy.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel at times. I literally, yes, like
you're like mush.
The minute I like someone, I'm just like, and I'm like, gather yourself, Irene, gather yourself. You know, it's not the end of the world. But yeah,
logic goes out the window.
Logic does go out the window. It's very interesting.
But also, like, there is nothing better than feeling like you're falling in love with somebody. It's so terrifying and amazing all at once. It's so awesome.
It's scary to fall in love. I don't know if I can allow myself to fall in love again.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's terrifying to fall in love with someone, because then you're just so open to them, you know? And unless that person can make you feel so safe that you can actually fall in love with them and fall into the depth of nothingness and fear and all these other things, like, I don't know. I really contain my feelings nowadays. And I find that a lot of women do. We contain our feelings because it's scary to fall in love.
But on the flip side, okay, so you're containing your feelings, you're more guarded. And look,
Yeah.
I get that, because it's, no one wants to be a gaping wound where it's like you don't have any control, right? No one wants to be the car dealership,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like, the other side of that is, what are you missing out on?
Rejection and pain and all these different things, honestly. You know, I hope that one day I could fall in love again.
There's
really
there's
do.
another side to that, though. There's connection, there's intimacy, there's love,
Yeah.
and those things are what make life worth living.
Yeah. Love is a very scary and exciting thing all at the same time. But it's also something that as you get older, you become more careful with, because not everyone deserves your love. And not until someone earns your love is when you slowly, it's like feeding a baby. You can't overfeed them. You slowly kind of give them a little more of your love. And that's what I've learned, because sadly, it's not like when you're a teenager where you're just like, I feel so good, and you can just give, you know, and just like not even think about what might happen in 3-6 months or 6 years even, you know. Now it's just more, you're cautious and you kind of step back. And going back to our exes, you gave them all your love. You have no more love to give to your ex. You gave them all you could, and there's nothing left.
Some chapters come to an end. That's true.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
maybe are worth revisiting, and that becomes circumstantial, right?
Absolutely. I'm not saying like you should never give an ex a chance.
But the answer is probably no.
They're a rare occasion where an ex deserves another chance.
Okay, so I hear, like, I don't know if they're high school sweethearts or they met early in life, and then, of course, they're immature, they need to grow up.
Yeah.
They get married to other people. Their marriage ends. They find each other like later in life again.
Yeah,
You've heard that story.
That's like a fairy tale.
No, but I have heard this story in real life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, but it's not like super realistic.
It's not realistic, but it's not to say like it doesn't happen for some people.
Oh,
And that would be,
yeah.
that's an example of an ex, right? Someone getting back
Totally.
together with their ex like down the line.
Yeah.
And just revisiting what's I will say what's nice about getting back together with your ex, if it is possible, is you don't have to go through all that hard courting stuff of like getting to know someone, and you know that creates a lot of anxiety for people. Those early days in a relationship where you're like excited but like the butterflies, and you're scared, and you're like, how's this person going to respond? Like if you know that person, you've already cut through that like
Yeah.
tape, you know?
Honestly, I think that's, again, as I said, it's like a fairy tale, like once in a lifetime thing that can happen, which I'm sure it happens. I've heard it happen as well. But I don't think I could ever go back with any ex. Could you see yourself going back with any ex?
I don't know. I haven't given it much thought, but no, probably not.
Probably not. Because
Yeah.
if there was someone who stuck out, you would have known. But yeah, I mean, date, find people you like, you know, but I think we grow out of relationships for a reason. And that's why I don't believe in getting married so soon. You know, in our
I don't
culture,
either. I'm a big proponent in like slow roll to marriage.
Yeah. Marriage is like a big thing. Marriage is not just, you know, oh, I love you, so let's get married. Marriage is, we have the same, morals and values, and maybe even kind of similar, not same, but similar, I would say, similar outlook on life, similar outlook on, how we're going to create our home and if there's kids involved or if not, and so forth. So I think we have a misconception of what marriage is actually about, and we just link it up to, well, I married because I loved him. That's not a good enough reason to marry someone. Because
also, marriage doesn't make a relationship.
No, it doesn't. There are people out there who will be together for several years. What is that? Goldie Hawn and her boyfriend? They've been together for God knows how long. They never got married, but he stuck by her side and he made her feel safe. And, it's just not that marriage is not a good thing. Marriage is a beautiful thing, but they have a marriage.
Yeah.
They have a marriage.
That's why it's like an institution doesn't make a relationship.
Exactly.
And so, it comes to like, I had even thought about it because we are so programmed, right? We're so programmed with like marriage and kids and then this and then that. And like in our mind's eye, we go through the trajectory of our whole life as society tells us, right? Mm-hmm. But now I think people are rethinking that for themselves. They're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to have kids. Yeah, I don't know if I want to get married. That's what society tells me like my life path is supposed to look like, especially as a woman, right? If we want to have kids, like, well, that's what that's going to look like for us. But it's not for everybody. I'm a big person. Like, if you don't want to have kids, fine. And that doesn't mean anything about you being lesser than, right? If you don't want to get married, fine. The institution isn't for you. If you want to get married and you value that institution and it creates some stability or has meaning for you, fine to that too, right?
But does getting married create stability?
I think it depends on the person, because some people need structure, just like religion creates structure for people.
Yeah, you can have that structure without getting married to someone.
But some people need that structure.
But
it's
so
different.
It goes back to
correct
the label.
But some people want, like, just like how some people need religion and like the rules around religion and like the traditions and things that religion provides, and it creates stability for them or whatever it is that it feeds their soul. They like that and they need that. And not everybody needs that. It's the same for marriage. Marriage is an institution, and it creates whatever it creates for that person in the way they have their own meaning around it.
Absolutely.
And so it's just person dependent. What does marriage mean to you, right? Like how do you define that? Is that institution important to you?
Yeah. I mean, the word institution is very off-throwing, but yeah, it is an institution. It's an interesting thing, our relationships, whether we go back to the old or, move forward with the new or whatever it is. It just really, every relationship teaches us a lesson, whether it's a marriage or it's a boyfriend or a fiance or a friend even, But yeah, life is very interesting right now. And again, I don't know if I could let myself fall in love.
But I think what you did say was like you have a little bit of a slow, open heart, but you're just not as open as you used to be. Because of, stuff that's happened.
I'm definitely not as open as I used to be. God, I was so naive. We're so naive. Like, women are so naive. We're just like, oh my God.
Well, you live and you learn.
Yeah.
And that's life.
And we date at different stages of our life.
And even if, those exes in Texas, they're not in my life anymore, they still taught me a lot of lessons. And I love them for it.
Yeah. The moral of the story is, don't put your shit back into your body. I'm just kidding. No, the moral of the story is you could go back to your ex if you want to. They just have to earn. You have to see, is this a quality person that I'm going back to? And are they going to give me, have they grown? Have they evolved and become, different version of themselves? Or am I going back into the same shit that I was in? That's awful. Can you imagine going back to a person?
I mean, many people do.
I know, but why they do that? It's because that's what they're familiar with. We go back to familiar feelings. We go back to familiar things. We reach out to the people that, even though they might have hurt us, we'll reach out to them because their voice or the things that they're going to say, or, because we're familiar. They're safe for us, regardless of how bad our relationship was. But
I'm actually going to elaborate on that because I think it's even deeper than that. I think we go back to people that hurt us because we're looking for a different outcome. And we may not even be conscious of it, but we're like, okay, it didn't work out, but I'm going to try again because I'm really, it's that Freudian repetition, right? We're trying to resolve the unresolved. And so we go back to like an empty well, right? It's like, well, logically, we knew this didn't work. We know this person isn't going to give us what we want, but we keep going back because we're subconsciously looking for a different outcome. And we're always going to get disappointed until we learn the lesson.
Love is insanity. Is basically what you said. We keep going back to.
So what is the definition of madness? Doing the same thing again
over and over again, expecting a different result. So it's like going back to the same person over and over again and expecting them to be different. They're not going to be different. So Carl Jung talked about change, and it's on a spectrum. So people are actually constantly changing, but they're changing very small, in small increments.
Yes.
So when people say that people don't change, that's not true. People are actually always changing and evolving. Some people more so than others, of course. So we can't say like, oh, we're waiting for someone to change in order to go back to them. But at the end of the day, your core personality traits are not going to change. Maybe your thinking can change, your feelings can change, but that person's core personality is not going to all of a sudden dramatically change unless they go to like therapy and stuff like that, or do some sort of drugs to like get out of their body and look at themselves. So going back to your ex, is it a good idea? Probably not, I would say, because you've seen that movie and you know how it ends. Yes, in rare occasions, there are those special humans in the world where you could go back to and you guys have evolved and you can have this new relationship or continue a next chapter. But I wouldn't recommend going back to an ex because, as I said, you've seen the movie, you know how it ends. Don't expect different things from the same person. Okay, final thought. Yeah. Don't do things that you've already done that you know the outcome and the ending of the movie. Yeah. Like, done. Yeah. Go on a date with new people, meet new people. All right. See what's out there.